Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm announcing the public launch of a new political force, the Alba Party. Alba will contest the upcoming Scottish elections as a list-only party under my leadership, seeking to build a supermajority for independence in the Scottish Parliament. Over the next 6 weeks we'll promote new ideas about taking Scotland forward, giving primacy to economic recovery from the pandemic and the achievement of independence for our country. We expect to field a minimum of 4 candidates in each regional list, and we're hoping to elect Alba MSPs from every area of Scotland. Today I want to introduce you to the party, to its aims, and to some of our very first candidates. Today we're making an entirely positive statement, and also asking people to come forward and give us support. Given the unique circumstances of this election campaign, these messages you're about to see are in video form. However, I would like to introduce you to 3 of our candidates. First, let's hear from Eva Comrie, who will be standing for Alba in Mid-Scotland and Fife.
Thank you, Alec. Hello, I'm Eva Comrie. I was born in Stirling in the heart of Scotland and brought up happily in Blairlogie, Crieff and Alva. I went on with the assistance of a grant to study law at Edinburgh. I'm your bionic candidate because the Scottish NHS saved my life and my mobility. They've provided me with a couple of dozen artificial legs and they rebuilt my titanium spine. Independence for Scotland has been my lifetime's desire, and for that reason I have today relinquished my candidacy in the #1 spot for the SNP in Mid-Scotland and Fife. And that's because I've accepted an invite to stand as a list candidate for the Alba Party, because the Alba Party will ensure, as a list party, that Scotland elects a supermajority for independence. In addition, as a woman and as a lawyer, you might understand that I've been a little disappointed that equalities policies have not been as positive as they might have been. So I intend to continue to campaign on that topic, and I'll be delivering a policy paper on equalities at our candidates' consultation a week on Saturday. Finally, I need to say that this will be a positive campaign run with a spirit of determination, that what we will focus on in Alba and what I will focus on will be what is best for the people who live and work in the area where I've lived and worked for all of my life. And my primary aim is to ensure that I am part of the team that attains independence for our country and rebuilds our country when we have our independence once more. Thank you. Siar Alba go bra.
Thank you, Eva. As Eva mentioned, we're going to have a candidates conference a week on Saturday, and I can think of no one better to present the equalities policy to that conference than Eva. And I look forward to seeing her policy and to the discussion which arises. Now, second up today from Cynthia Guthrie, who intends to stand in the south of Scotland for Alba.
Hello Alec, I'm Cynthia Guthrie and I'm very honoured to be standing for the Alba Party in the south of Scotland in the forthcoming parliamentary elections. My background's business, and what's really been lacking in the Scottish Parliament are experienced business people. I've got a proven track record in corporates and also in an SME which I currently co-own. We have got to establish and get an ecosystem, get the economy back up and running, and really help businesses transition out of the COVID pandemic. So I'm really looking forward to putting all my experience to good use in Parliament. My hope is that people will support the Alba Party. Let us get a supermajority on the 6th of May.
Thanks, Cynthia. And Cynthia's expertise in business is going to be hugely invaluable if she's elected to the Scottish Parliament, given the priority of recovery from the pandemic. And now, finally for today, for the candidates list is Councillor Chris McElhenney from the west of Scotland.
Hello, Alec. Thank you very much, and thank you for your words there. They were very much an inspiration. My name's Chris McElhenney. I'm a councillor in Inverclyde in the west of Scotland. I was first elected as an SNP councillor in 2012 and had the great privilege of leading the SNP in Inverclyde for almost a decade. But today I've relinquished my membership of the SNP. I will no longer be standing for the SNP on the West of Scotland list, and instead I'll be standing for the Alba Party alongside you so that we can deliver a super majority for independence at the upcoming Scottish parliamentary elections. Many people may know that over the past years I've been calling for a plan B, so that when Boris Johnson continues to tell us no, we can't have a choice in our own future, we make sure we have that choice. And I think that the Alba Party is exactly what is needed right now, so that the SNP can absolutely win constituencies across Scotland, but only by voting for the Alba Party on the list can we deliver that super majority for our independence. Thank you, and back over to you, Alec.
Oh, well, thanks, Chris. And of course, the man who made Plan B a household term. Now, I should say that Alba was founded by the journalist Laurie Flynn, who has provided a statement today for distribution, which will be set out on the Alba site. I had discussions with Laurie, and indeed others from other list parties over the past few weeks. But I'm sure it's the concept of Alba, which is the one which is most soundly based. The party's strategic aims are clear and unambiguous: to achieve a successful, socially just, environmentally responsible, independent country. The tactics are to stand for the regional list to secure the supermajority for independence in our parliament. We intend to contribute policy ideas to assist Scotland's economic recovery and to help build an independence platform to face new political realities. At the last election, there were nearly 1 million wasted SNP votes on the regional list. Only 4 SNP MSPs were elected in that way. In yesterday's Survation poll, the SNP would elect no regional seats at all from 1 million votes on the list. They would all be totally wasted independence votes. Now, if Alba wins regional list seats, the wasted votes end. The number of independents supporting MSPs in the Parliament could reach 90 or even more. The initiative for independence should then be led by the Parliament, uniting the parties. Boris Johnson has already said no to the SNP proposals. He will find it much more difficult to say no to a Parliament and a country. And the independence debate will be recast, not as the Tories against the SNP, but Boris Johnson against Scotland's Parliament representing Scotland's people. Today, Alba are hoisting a flag in the wind, planting our saltire on a hill. In the next few weeks, we'll see how many will rally to our standard. Now, thank you very much. I'm about to show a video, and then we're going to move on to questions. Ah, good, James. Well, good, well done. Now we're going into questions now. Don't worry, we've got many questions, and if people can, if we can restrict to the one question each, because there are so many, we're going to do television, print journalists, bloggers in order. And don't worry, we'll get through everybody's question. I'll stay here until all the questions are answered. But first up, we've got, if I can see correctly, I think we've got Jim Matthews of Sky Television. Jim, on you go. Thanks, Jim. On the question about what's going to provide the majority for independence, as we set out arithmetically, it's very clear indeed. And the Salvation poll I mentioned, the latest poll, shows that absolutely. I mean, what that shows, and that on the constituency section, the SNP would win a majority of seats, a bare majority, but a majority. I think the figure was 67. But in the list section of the Holyrood poll, the SNP would win no seats whatsoever. But despite having a best part of 1 million votes in the list, they would win no seats whatsoever. Now, the Alba Party is a list party. We're standing only in the list. We're not challenging the SNP in the constituencies. Indeed, we're saying vote SNP or for an independence party on the constituency section. We're giving that support. Our campaign that we launch is going to be entirely positive. Now, as far as the second part of your question, Jim, I mean, we've had, 2 court cases, 2 judges, 1 jury, 3 inquiries. And I'm prepared to accept the results of all of these. So it is time to move on. The outstanding things from there are things that were recommended by the inquiries, the civil action against the Permanent Secretary and the Scottish Government. That was came out of the recommendations of the parliamentary inquiry, and the report to the police on the leak, which has caused so much distress for everyone involved. Then that certainly came out of the Hamilton report and the comments of the parliamentary inquiry. So after the 2 court cases, the jury, the 3 inquiries, it is time to move on. I wanted to talk about the future of Scotland for the last 3 years. Now I've got the opportunity, thanks to the Alba Party, and that's exactly what I intend to do. I intend to do it in an entirely positive way. We've got to establish the independence platform, which will enable us to take this country to independence. We've got to respond to the challenges of the pandemic, the economic challenges, which are going to come upon us very soon. We're not even out of the woods of the pandemic yet. These are the ideas that Alba are going to contribute. And as you see, the positive platform that emerges from Alba, I think it's going to reinforce the momentum behind the independence cause, and that's exactly what we intend to do. Now, next up in a question, I think we have the Times newspaper and Kieran Andrews, I think. Right, I think I've got your question, Kieran. This is quite central to what the Alba Party is putting forward. We're saying that the independent strategy should lie with the Parliament. That's why we need a supermajority. We think it will be fundamentally more difficult for Boris Johnson to say no to a Parliament than he does to a party. So if you have in the Scottish Parliament a substantial majority of MSPs across a range of parties who are supporting independence, then that is a very powerful position to start independence negotiations. If you don't do it that way and put forward a proposal for a Section 30 or for even for a plebiscite of some kind, without that majority behind you, then Boris Johnson will say, no, this is an SNP fascination, this is a party, this is the UK government against the SNP, and we're entitled to say no. We've got to cast the independence debate, not as that, but rather as Boris Johnson against Scotland's Parliament representing Scotland's people. That's why the supermajority concept is fundamental to the success of the negotiations for independence. And now we move on to the blogging community, and I think we've got the Wings Over Scotland, Stuart Campbell. Stuart? The strategic aim of Alba is to secure Scottish independence, which is a substantial strategic aim. We think, as I've just said to Kieran, that the supermajority, building that substantial majority in the Scottish Parliament, is the key to unlock that question, and it's the key to the way forward. Now, if Alba helps, and it is helping, because we're not standing on the constituency ballot. We expect that to be dominated by the Scottish National Party. But if Alba can help by contributing independence supporting MSPs and their expertise, they're contributing to the new platform that we're going to have to build in independence to meet the new political realities, ideas to get us out of the pandemic in an economic sense as quickly as possible. If we can contribute these, then that's an entirely positive thing. As to what happens, I mean, if we are able to assist, to help in achieving our country's independence, and that's really what that's more than enough for me as a person. I'm sure for the Alba MSPs who are elected. But anything that happens beyond that will be entirely a matter for the Scottish people, because we, like every other political party, are in the hands of the people. Now I think we're on to television again. Right. In terms of the first part of your question, I mean, everything I've said on the record stands. But after the court cases, after the judges, after the jury, after the inquiries, my view is we should accept the results of everything. The ones we like, the ones we don't like, and then we move on. Everything I've said about everything stands as it did. In terms of the difference between the SNP and Alba, then it's pretty obvious that the difference is that the SNP are standing in the constituencies and the list. Alba is a list-only party. As I pointed out at the last election, the best part of a million SNP list votes were wasted, electing only 4 MSPs from the regional list section. If we are to accept the suggestions from the Salvation poll yesterday, the SNP would have a massive victory on the constituency section of the ballot, but not elect not one single list MSP because of the workings of the D'Hondt system. In other words, a million votes, it would be wasted. Now, ALBA and indeed other parties are standing as list-only parties. If we are successful in electing MSPs, if the people decide to give ALBA their votes, then that will add and build what we're describing as the independent supermajority in Scotland's Parliament. That allows us to cast the independence debate not as party against party, not as SNP against the Tories, not as Nicola Sturgeon against Boris Johnson, but allows us to cast the debate as it should be cast. That is, the Tory Prime Minister saying no to Scotland. Not to saying no to a political party, but saying no to Scotland's Parliament and Scotland's people. And I think it's fundamentally more difficult for Boris Johnson to say no to the Parliament and the people. And the strategy for obtaining independence, it should be one that we entrust to the Parliament with, we hope, and it's up to the people, but we hope a substantial supermajority for independence in that Parliament. And now next up will be a member of the press corps. Thank you. You're very well informed, and you managed to get 3 questions in, Pila. But can I take them in? Can I take them in turn? My main reason for returning to politics, by invitation from Laurie Flynn and his colleagues in the ALBA party, to give a list party the profile I think it needs to make a breakthrough in this election, entirely up to the people of Scotland. But if we do make that breakthrough, then it's going to result not in a narrow majority of, or perhaps even no majority of independents supporting MSPs in our Parliament, but we think it will result in a supermajority, a substantial majority, which is the parliamentary base that's required in order to be in a strong position to negotiate our independence with the UK government. As far as the GRA and other policies are concerned, you perhaps heard Eva Comrie say that she was taking our equalities paper to our candidates conference a week tomorrow. And as I said, I can think of no better person to take that qualities paper forward. But it's an issue of how do you reconcile the important rights of equality for all with the hard-won rights that people, particularly women, have achieved, the sex-based rights to private spaces. And that's the issues that are tackled in Eva's paper, and it comes across in a very positive way. I'm looking forward to the ALBA debating that a week on Saturday and the policies that come out of it. And in terms of the process by which, the statecraft, by which we make sure that the Prime Minister bows to the will of the Scottish people, then it is absolutely vital that we win the argument for legitimacy of the independence question. How you establish that, whether it's a Section 30 referendum or a plebiscite, that's a tactic by which you're achieving that legitimacy. But the first port of call legitimacy is Scotland's Parliament speaking for Scotland's people. and to cast the debate and the argument and the negotiations as a Tory Prime Minister against a Parliament as opposed to party against party is fundamental to winning that argument. I can tell you from experience that extracting concessions from Westminster is never an easy process. There's many countries and many places around the world who could testify to that in their history. But it can be done, it will be done, and essential to having it done is to have that supermajority in the Parliament, and that's what ALBA stands for. And then we go on to our next question. Okay, good questions, Paul. But the answer to the first one is unambiguously yes. I'll campaign with all people who are putting forward the independence cause in a referendum, as you would do in a referendum. Can I say that, just to re-emphasise the point I made to Pilar, that a referendum is one tactic. I mean, I moved forward to a referendum under a Section 30 clause in 2014, as you know. But that was done because that was the best way to achieve the legitimacy of an independence referendum, the acceptance of independence by Westminster, if the Scottish people said yes at that time. It's by no means the only route. The route has to be democratic, but there's a range of pressures and things you can establish in terms of bringing the independence case forward. As I said, the Section 30 referendum, the plebiscite idea, international legal action, the peaceful street demonstrations, popular will, these are all tactics. But the tactics have to be founded on the legitimacy of the Parliament. The Parliament has to have, I believe, not a bare majority for independence within it, but a supermajority. That changes the balance fundamentally into Scotland's favour. That's what I think ALBA's got to offer. But of course, this is not a matter that should be decided by personalities. This is a matter of policy in the future of Scotland, and then it behoves everyone to accept the verdict of the people, whatever it may be, and certainly to rally to Scotland's cause when the time comes. In terms of your second question, ALBA's not really a party which is looking to government posts. The contributions that we're trying to make are threefold. One is to build that supermajority. Secondly is immediately, and this will emerge from a week on Saturday, the policy conference, and during the campaign, specific ideas, principally on economic recovery for Scotland from the pandemic. This is the urgent requirement. The consequences in economic terms of the pandemic have not really hit us yet. I mean, the consequences in social terms and family terms, of course, have hit us over the last year, all of us, and that's obvious. But the economic consequences of the pandemic are still to come, and therefore economic recovery is an overwhelming priority. And the third thing that ALBA can contribute is, the world has moved on since 2014. The independence platform has to be refashioned and rebuilt to meet the new realities. And other aspects of what emerges from ALBA over the next 6 weeks will address that point. So these are the three contributions that ALBA can make to the independence debate, rather than looking for seats in government, which we don't see as our role. Next question up. are going to be. They come from a range of experience. I think Chris has been instrumental in advancing the independence debate, getting people to think what happens if. And in a way, of course, that's been the genesis of the Alba Party, and seeing and understanding that a secure majority in Parliament for independence is fundamental to the independence cause. So we welcome the contribution from Chris and from the other candidates that will be unveiling. And the candidates conference, I think, will be an exciting and very productive event a week tomorrow. In terms of people, I mean, look, this is a democracy. This is an election. Everybody has the right to stand. Everybody has the right to put forward their point of view, and then the people obviously have the right to choose. So I see strength in that diversity of choice, and the people of Scotland will, in the elections, decide which way they want to go, both in terms of the constituency ballot, where the SNP is dominant at the present moment, and I hope it stays that way. But also in terms of the list ballot, where the opportunity is there to see really a substantial number more independents supporting MSPs elected. And I hope the people choose to do that as well. So next question up, I think we're back to the broadcasters now. Yes. And so next question up. That exchange will be a model exchange for everyone. Right, next question up, please. Is Amy up next? Denise? Well, there is, as we heard earlier, Eva Comley's coming forward for the qualities paper for next Saturday's candidates conference. That encompasses some questions over the hate crime bill, and I think I shouldn't speak in advance of the paper and the conversations that occur. But I mean, I sympathise with Eva Comley's, and I suspect yours, question marks over that bill and doubts and questions about the implementation. And although some assurances were given, perhaps they require to be to be strengthened because there is a great deal of hurt and concern about aspects of the legislation and fears of how it might be interpreted. And over a range of issues, and I'm not going into any one in particular, but over a range of issues, let's just say that the Crown Office has substantial work to do in terms of demonstrating that there's an appropriate separation of powers between the political side of government legal advice and the implementation of the independent prosecutorial function. But the question, the direct question on the hate crime bill, that is encompassed in Eva's paper, but it is hugely important on this issue and indeed on the range of wider political issues that we get these debates as far as possible onto an entirely positive footing. And the one distinguishing feature, not the one distinguishing feature, a number of distinguishing features ALBA will have, but the one distinguishing feature of these is that I give undertaking that everything that ALBA says and does in this election campaign and in its aftermath will be entirely positive, entirely constructive. It will try to put forward ideas in a fashion, in a manner which raises the debate to the level that we would expect when we're contemplating Scotland's future, Scotland's social structure, and Scotland as an independent country. It's absolutely vital that we conduct a debate in that fashion, and I absolutely pledge on behalf of the four ALBA candidates already declared, myself included, and the many more who will be declared over the next few days, that's exactly how we'll conduct ourselves and our approach to the independence and social debates in Scotland over this campaign, and if we are fortunate enough to be chosen by the people to represent part of our country in the Scottish Parliament. Now, next up.
Michael Blackley.
Thank you. Good afternoon. You've talked today about how your party is going to assist the SNP in helping to bring about this super majority. But is the truth not that your announcement today is actually going to be Nicola Sturgeon's worst nightmare? With everything that's gone on in recent weeks, the last thing that she wants to see is you showing up at the Scottish Parliament under a new banner. Even today, you've outlined not only Plan B, but it seems to be Plan C, Plan D and Plan E to independence. Are you not just going to be someone who exposes the divisions in the nationalist movement and is absolutely not what Nicola Sturgeon wants to be in the Scottish Parliament?
Well, the ALBA party will be putting forward in its literature the argument that people should vote for independence candidates, which means the SNP, in their constituency ballot. So we'll be expressing that support for the SNP in our literature for constituency ballots. We'll be saying vote ALBA in the regional list ballot for the obvious point that this will return more independence supporting MSPs. As we win independence, is going to be, as it always has been, be able to touch a variety of opinions across Scottish society and a variety of sections of Scottish society. People in a range of viewpoints from a range of backgrounds and a range of political stances have to be comfortable with the independence concept. But more than being comfortable with it, they've got to be able to contribute to it, contribute to the independence process. Now, I think it's fundamentally stronger to have something which we didn't really have in 2014 until the last weeks of the campaign, when the grassroots movement really took off in a hugely substantial way. But for much of the early stages of the campaign, it was cast as an SNP campaign. It was an SNP against the then Cameron government. It was us forcing forward views of having a referendum against the wishes of the Scottish people. We didn't have that campaign wide enough and broad enough to encompass more support. So I see different strands of independence thinking in the Parliament as a great strength of achieving progress in the negotiations which should happen if that Parliament is elected with the UK government. I think the position of Boris Johnson will be fundamentally weaker if he has to say no to an entire Parliament representing an entire nation as opposed to be able to cast it as just something which has been promoted by the SNP. So I see the range of independence viewpoints as a strength, and I hope that Alba can contribute to that. In terms of how that's conducted, well, we commit ourselves, I commit Alba, to conducting an entirely positive campaign. We are not standing in the constituency ballot. We wish the SNP well in sweeping the country on the constituency ballot. But we have substantial arguments to offer, which we'll do in the regional list. And if we are successful in persuading people to back us, then that will result in what we described as the supermajority for independence in Scotland's Parliament. Now to the next question.
Chris Musin.
Hello, Mr. Salmond, Chris Musson from the Scottish Sun. Recent polling has underlined how unpopular you were in your heyday. Two pots think of you unfavourably. Doesn't this show that you're discredited now and that it's time to step away from the public eye rather than into it?
Yes, the campaign is just beginning. And who'll decide who's elected will be the people of Scotland. My view is if you're able to put forward a positive platform and a positive stance, then people will rally to that banner. That's the hope I have. As I said, we are planting a saltire in the sand, a saltire in the hill today for all to see. And we're hoping that the people rally to that cause. That will be decided by the people. We will either get support or we won't. I believe we can get support. But obviously, one of the things I'm going to relish about the next 6 weeks is that I'll be able to talk about what I've wanted to talk about all my life, which is the potential of Scotland as an independent country. I'll be able to talk about the positive ideas that we can bring forward to contribute to that process, to the understanding of Scotland's potential. And all of us will, as Alba candidates, will have the joy of being able to articulate that cause. It's a cause that's been dearest to my heart, all of not just my political life, but all of my life, full stop. So that is the subject territory which I haven't been able to speak about for 3 years now. And I want to speak about now, and I'm going to speak about over the next 6 weeks, and then we'll let the people judge whether or not that is gaining support. And now on to the next question.
Hi, Libby Brooks from The Guardian. We've been reporting on significant concerns that the recent Holyrood inquiries and the way that they've played out have had a chilling effect on people coming forward with sexual harassment complaints. Do you have any concerns that by standing and inevitably keeping all of this in the spotlight, you're going to compound that chilling effect?
Well, I wasn't responsible for the way that the Holyrood inquiry was conducted, and that's a matter for those who conducted it. What I'm responsible for saying, as far as I'm concerned, with 2 court cases, 2 judges, 1 jury, 3 inquiries, because it wasn't just the parliamentary inquiry, there was the Hamilton inquiry, and of course the Dunlop recommendations have to be taken into account. These have to be accepted by everyone. The 2 outstanding matters, which we've mentioned earlier, the civil case in the court, and also the report to the police on criminal matters concerning the leak to the record, which everyone agreed had a dreadful effect on everyone concerned back in August 2018. These are things that came out of the recommendations of the Holyrood inquiry. I thought there was many things in that inquiry which were very positive, and I thought the recommendations which were unanimous, then presumably people can accept that these should be taken on board. But my view is we have to accept what has been said by the courts, by the judges, by the jury, by the inquiries, and we have to move on. And in this campaign, I'll be moving on to talk about the future of Scotland, about how we develop not just the independent supermajority, but confidence independence is the way forward for our country. That to me is the contribution that I'll be able to help Alba make in the campaign. Only a contribution, because we can only conduct our campaign, but our campaign will be conducted in an entirely positive fashion. Next question.
Greg Russell.
Hello, Alex. Greg Russell from the National here. How does your position on IndyRef 2 differ from the SNP's in essence? And do you want the other pro-Indy parties to unite behind you?
Well, Greg, I'm putting forward the Alba's point of view, and I think everyone else has a total entitlement to stand on the platform they wish. That's the essence of an election. Give people the choice, and that's the case for each constituency ballot, and it's the case for each regional list ballot. So, I mean, I've read obviously the SNP's 11-point plan for achieving independence. I suppose ALBA has a 1-point plan about how the mechanism by which you can increase the chances of delivering independence in this coming Parliament, and that is to trust the Parliament as the key body which achieves the legitimacy by which you can gain and win in negotiations with a UK government. Now, I think that is going to depend on what people put into the Parliament, but people can be absolutely certain that every ALBA member of the Scottish Parliament will live and breathe independence, will see independence as an absolute priority, will take an entirely constructive view to building that independence supermajority, that effective coalition, which will put whoever's negotiating independence in as strong a position as possible in facing down Boris Johnson in negotiations. So you can rely on ALBA to be backing independence at each and every opportunity in every way possible. But the crucial aspect is to have the legitimacy of a parliament speaking for a people, which gives Scotland the upper hand in these negotiations. Next question up.
Peter Smith.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. Salmond. Just looking at the way that you're going to be lining up your candidates in every area on the regional list, it reads to me that your party is actually more of a threat to the Scottish Greens. And is it the fact that your ideal outcome would be that Nicola Sturgeon would be dependent on you after this election to go to Boris Johnson and ask for that second independence referendum? And I know that you were keen to avoid the psychodrama of making the last few months about a battle between you and Nicola Sturgeon. But is it not just a fact that you standing is now going to be, in many people's eyes, Alex Salmond taking on Nicola Sturgeon?
Well, obviously one poll is one poll, but it does give an indication of where we stand in Scottish politics. If we take that Survation survey published yesterday, I think that gave the SNP 67 seats, all won on the constituency section, none on the list. I think it gave the Greens another 11. If ALBA is able to make a contribution, that might take the independence supporting MSPs in the Scottish Parliament, of which I hopefully will be one, but there'll be ALBA MSPs, to perhaps 90 out of the 129. Now that is a powerful position to have, not a weak position, but a powerful position. And it's a powerful position that goes beyond party because it's a parliament. You know, this is much, much too important to get lost in personalities. This is an issue about the future of Scotland, about how to construct that independence majority. And I will cooperate, I will argue positively with everyone and contribute positively in order to build that independence coalition. And what I think is crucial, an independence supermajority in the Parliament. Not a narrow thing, not dependent on the whims and each budget of will we, won't we, in terms of a vote, but a secure majority that the Parliament will be trusted and it will become a parliamentary matter how the process of independence is negotiated with the UK government. That is so much more of an advantage in making it party against party, Tories against SNP, Prime Minister against First Minister. To have a reliable supermajority at the back of the First Minister in facing down Westminster, I think might be, well, it would be crucial in gaining an advantage for Scotland and having the legitimacy that's required to enable the country to move forward in these independence negotiations. Next question up.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to ask two questions, if possible. Mr. Salmond, there have been reports that your own legal team were overheard describing you as a bully, a nightmare to work with, a nasty person. In court, it was admitted that your behaviour could have been better. You've faced numerous allegations of sexual harassment and assault, albeit that you were cleared of. Why would anyone want to vote for someone like you? And my second question is, as an outsider, some people might see what's going on here and think that your political career has failed and you are now desperate to stay relevant at any cost, even if it means trashing the party that you spent most of your life working for. Is that a fair assessment of what's going on?
Well, let me take your first point first. There have been two court cases, as I said, one in the Court of Session, which is the highest civil court in Scotland, one in the High Court, which is the highest criminal court in Scotland. There's been two judges, there's been a jury, there's been 3 inquiries. Now, as you know, I'm saying we should accept the results of these court judgments and accept the results of a jury. Most fair-minded people do that. In fact, not just more fair-minded people, it's the essence of a justice system. So I think that should apply to everyone, and I'm going to say that all of these things have to be accepted. And in terms of the inquiries, I'm prepared to accept the judgments of these inquiries that I didn't agree with, as well as pursuing the conclusions that I do agree with, hence the ongoing civil and also the report to the police. These all came out of the inquiries, which I'm saying that everybody should just accept in order to move on. Secondly, as I've been saying, our intention in this campaign for the Alba Party, and this is what we'll do, is to put forward an entirely positive case for independence for Scotland. We are not challenging the SNP on the constituency ballot. That is a deliberate choice, because the SNP, we believe, will hopefully sweep the country on an independence platform or referendum platform on the constituency ballot. But the list section, the likelihood is the SNP will get very few or perhaps even no MSPs at all. And we'll be back to the situation that's suggested in that Surveyson survey or demonstrated at the last election, where up to 1 million independence votes will effectively be lost in the regional list section. Now, Alba and indeed others are putting forward ideas of how to tackle that, of how to solve that, and how to stop the wasted votes. Now, that reinforces not just the cause in the case of independence because of the positive way it's being put forward, it also reinforces the independence majority in the Scottish Parliament. And I think it's absolutely fundamental, if we're going to succeed in negotiating the independence of our country, that we can rely on that handsome, substantial supermajority of independence supporting MSPs, because it is fundamentally more difficult for a Westminster government to take on a parliament and a people as opposed to just casting it as a party v party dispute. Everything that Alba does in this election will be a positive contribution to building that independence supermajority. The next question.
Thanks, Chris Green from the Eye here. Two campaign-related questions. One, obviously there are TV debates already being announced by the broadcasters. Would you expect to be given a podium there as the leader of the party? And also, will you be touring the country as part of this campaign yourself? Can people expect to see Alex Salmond popping up in their constituency?
Well, good questions, Chris. I mean, we'll be making representations to the broadcasting authorities. I think we'll have to demonstrate our list of candidates. The candidate deadline is next Wednesday, and we're looking for support today. We're looking for people to come forward if they wish to associate with Alba, and that's be advertised on our site. You know, we are looking for people and recruits, and we've got a very, very sharp timescale, not just to get that list of candidates in, but also to found a new political force, a new political party, and take that case to the people. We're well aware of the shortness of timescale. And therefore, once we've done that, if we demonstrate we have got people of calibre, that we have a breadth for support, we're making a serious challenge in the list section of the ballot, it then would be in a good position to go to the broadcasters and say, look, it would be fair to hear what we've got to say. But we will see if we could demonstrate that breadth for support by next Wednesday, and then we'll take matters from there. As far as going around the country is concerned, we'll have candidates, ALBA candidates across the country. Obviously, I'll do my best to get round, given the restrictions that we all face at the present moment, and some of these have been lifted for the election campaign, but not all, as you're well aware. But we'll try to conduct a grassroots campaign as well as a social media campaign as best we can, given the rules and regulations which all of us must obey at the present moment. On to the next question.
Jason McCann.
Fesgar Ma, Alex, agus Tapalef. Jason McCann here from iScot magazine. Congratulations, and my question would be pertaining to the route to independence. We have been speaking a great deal in the independence movement about the creation of a supermajority, which we know by the arithmetic of the politics and certainly by the numbers in the polls that this is entirely plausible. And I believe, given the right conditions, it can happen. But we've also heard from the British government that there would be talk of simply refusing this. And in light of what has happened in Catalonia, and as you know, I'm in Dublin myself, Britain has an atrocious record with dealing with democratic situations that it cannot win. Faced with the intransigence of the British government, would you have a plan B for Britain doing what Britain does and saying no?
Well, thanks for the question. This is the very essence of the ALBA Party's argument as regards our contribution to achieving independence. We think that one of the ingredients, one of the essential prerequisites, is that the independence support, not that the government's own majority for its own programme, but the independent support within the Parliament is broadly based and is numerically dominant. That has to be a supermajority. Otherwise, the political party is looking over its shoulder at the array of unionist parties and are basically facing two fronts. That is to say, facing the UK government in negotiations and facing the unionist parties in the Parliament. If there is also a breadth of independence supporting MSPs behind the independence policy, behind the independence strategy, behind the independence negotiations, then that fundamentally alters the balance. It allows you to use statecraft. The most important thing to understand in the history of the SNP will tell you, as we evolved in the Scottish National Party, when it evolved the various ways and routes to independence, from a mandate to negotiate, from getting 36 seats at Westminster to latterly the referendum policy under a Section 30. These were instruments, these were tactics to achieve the strategic objective. The strategic objective of the SNP in its history and the strategic objective of the ALBA Party is to achieve independence for Scotland. The democratic legitimacy by which you build that independence is something that the Parliament can demonstrate. Once the Parliament demonstrates that, then whether your tactics are legal, international, or pressure, or peaceful street demonstrations, the whole array of tactics come into play. And as long as they're democratic and peaceful, they're entirely legitimate. As long as they're backed by the Parliament, they'll have that necessary parliamentary seal of approval. That's exactly why having a supermajority in the Parliament counts for so much. And as you rightly say, if we look at history, it would tell us that United Kingdom governments, by and large, although there were some exceptions, but by and large did not, at first blush, concede the independence of many, many places across the globe. But nonetheless, I think 50 countries have become independent from Westminster since the Second World War. So countries have achieved their independence in peaceful fashion in a variety of ways, and that can be the case for Scotland as well. It can be achieved democratically by consent, but a fundamental prerequisite is to have that supermajority of MSPs in the Parliament. That is something we didn't have previously, we can have now. The elections offer us the opportunity, and I think that's entirely constructive and positive for the independence case. It may change the essential balance between Scotland and Westminster.
It's Ewan Petrie from STV News here. Do you think women will vote for you given that you admitted inappropriate behaviour during your time as First Minister?
Well, the range of candidates, Ewan, from the ALBA party will demonstrate in full measure our commitment to equality, to the role of women in Scottish society, and I think the ALBA party's appeal will be substantial. But we'll see over the next 6 weeks in terms of how people respond to the ALBA party's message. We have no compunction about knowing the scale of the challenge. It's not something that's often done, which is launching a political party in a 6-week period, trying to achieve parliamentary representation in that period of time. That is a difficult task and a difficult challenge, but it's one that's in the hands of the people, and it'll be in the hands of the people over the next 6 weeks, and they'll be the ones to judge. But I think what you'll see over the next few days in terms of the calibre of candidates that come forward, and you've seen 2 examples of that today, that we'll be able to present an array of candidates which show that we have a broad base of support among our candidates, and we think we'll find that response among the people as well from all sections of Scottish society, and with a variety of points of views. ALBA will be saying things which appeal across society, and we think we'll get a good response. Next question.
Hello, Alec. Congratulations on your new party. I'm Bob Costello from Dundee, and I and others ran the Yes Bus team during the last referendum campaign. After the campaign, we kind of thought that things would continue, you know, there would be some kind of a campaign ongoing. We discovered that was not the case. In fact, we had a huge amount of obstruction from the local SNP party. I just want to make sure, Alec, that after this last 6.5 years of stagnation, is the new party, is it going all out for independence, you know, and it's not going to be this carrot dangling just before an election and then never hearing about independence, you know, actually during the election campaign. So what's the situation, Alec?
The ALBA party lives and breathes independence. And, everything we do will be designed to help gain Scottish independence, to see it as the overwhelming priority. We've got ideas to contribute to economic recovery from the pandemic. That's an absolutely crucial situation at the present moment. And we have to plan for that. Even though we're not out of the woods in the pandemic itself, we have to plan for that economic recovery. We've got some substantial ideas to put forward to assist in that process. We've also got ideas in terms of constructing the new independence platform, which will offer forward to meet the new realities, the new political realities that we are now in. This is not 2014, this is 2021. But everything ALBA does to build that supermajority for independence will to see independence as the priority, and will try to support the moves for independence. It's something we'll live and breathe before the election campaign, during the election campaign, and if we are successful, then within the Scottish Parliament itself. Next question.
Conor.
Hi, Alex. It's Conor Matchett from The Scotsman. Wanted to ask you, if possible, how would you respond to concerns raised by presumably opposition parties and other human rights watchers about your links to Russia via your TV show on RT? And secondly, who's funding this party? Is it going to be
crowdfunders, or have you got backers from elsewhere?
Well, in terms of funding, Conor, I mean, all our funding will be declared, but we're rather hoping there might be an influx of funds coming from announcing our existence as a political party. So we're hoping there'll be an appeal out on that very subject, and we're hoping we'll get a substantial response. It'll be very much in the hands of the people. But when there's been appeals in the national movement before, then people who can see the progress that the national movement can gain from initiatives have been very generous giving their funds. And of course, all our funds, like all the political parties in this campaign, will be openly declared. As far as the show on RT is concerned, obviously that show will be suspended for the course of the election campaign. I'll be intending to be a candidate. That's part of the election rules. That show, of course, is independently produced by Slange Media. There's no editorial control from RT whatsoever. I think the show is justified on its merits. I'm sure you watched yesterday's programme, Conor, and you found Professor Hugh Montgomery giving one of the most emotional interviews I've ever seen as a huge force and specialist in academia in terms of genealogy, but also a practitioner in the wards in a busy London hospital in intensive care. When he spoke about the pressures on health service staff and how they've had to endure over the last year with things happening in their own lives. It was an extraordinary interview. I don't think anybody watching shows like that could credibly accuse the programmes that we've produced of having any secret agenda apart from exploring issues of the day in a fashion which I think gets across the issues and the people and stories behind the issues extremely well. But you watch it for yourself and judge if you can see any secret political agenda behind the programme yesterday. And everything we've done has been independently produced and subject to the same regulations as television shows. But it gives me the opportunity to say that the show, obviously, because I'm a candidate, will be suspended for the next 6 weeks. Next question.
Hi Alex, this is Louise Wilson from Holyrood Magazine. I just want to ask, how confident are you that given the last few years you'll have the trust of the people of Scotland, and will you be putting your name on all ballots next to the name Alba Scotland?
Yeah, well, obviously our list is still to be submitted, but I think you'll find when we submit our list of candidates, which will be a minimum of 4 from each area of Scotland, you'll find that it's balanced not just by gender, but balanced in a range of ways. So it demonstrates support from all aspects of Scottish society, which is so fundamental in terms of gathering confidence behind the independence cause. We believe that can be done without the party having artificial regulation, because it just needs acquirement and will to do it. But of course, by our deeds we shall be known, and we'll see next week if we can bring that forward as a list of candidates that people will look at and say, yeah, by gender, by a whole range of characteristics, this is a list which represents the people of Scotland. In terms of confidence, well, we're 6 weeks away from an election. We're hoisting the flag. We're sticking our saltire on the hill. We're appealing to people to rally for support. But this will be up to the people. I mean, we believe if we campaign positively, constructively, we stay on the independence case, we argue about the supermajority and the importance of it, we contribute our ideas to economic recovery from the pandemic, and we offer concepts which might help construct the new independence platform that's desperately needed if we're to gain and sustain the confidence of the people in the independence concept. If we can do that, then I believe that people will rally to that standard. But the next 6 weeks will tell if we can both gain and maintain the trust of support enough to elect Alba representatives to the Scottish Parliament. We are in the hands of the Scottish people, and that's exactly how it should be. Next up.
Hello there, Alex. First of all, congratulations for emerging from your nightmare. For the last 2 years, I've been batting off people telling me that Scotland is a one-party state, unlike Boris Johnson and the Tories with their 80 majority, even though the SNP is a minority party. And I can hear by the tone of the right-wing newspaper journalists that they are determined to argue that a multi-party state is just as unhealthy. And I'm very sorry indeed to have heard some of the questions put to you, but these are the same people who refuse to look at the democratic deficits that Scotland endures and has endured since 1707. My question is on those lines, and that is the antagonism that people like me have had to handle from the Scottish National Party, which has moved from an all-encompassing, we take all sorts party of people from all walks of life, to one in which I, as a private citizen, a member of the public, choosing to use the internet to communicate, is branded as cybermat, and we are alienated. And a great deal of SNP MPs and MSPs block the very people who vote for them. In other words, they have arrived at a stage where they think the people are the problem. You will be, and the ALBA party will be relying on the same means of communication, particularly the internet. How are you going to discipline your candidates not to get frustrated by dissent, which may be positive dissent in what you and I would like to see, and that is a truly democratic society?
Gareth, can I say just how much I welcome your question and to see you on screen. For those who don't know, among his many other achievements in his working career, Gareth was the founder and inspiration for the Scottish Youth Theatre, which has given so much to so many youngsters emerging in Scottish society, and it's a wonderful thing to have done, Gareth. And your blog is good as well, incidentally, but that is an outstanding achievement that should be recognised. In terms of your question, we have some advantages. ALBA's not out to become a governing party. We're not out to go into administration. And I say this just because, as somebody who's been First Minister, who's been in government, I know that the exigencies of being in government and of holding the discipline of necessary discipline of government can sometimes seem over restrictive to people, but it's part of the process of being able to guarantee votes. Now, obviously, ALBA is in the fortunate position that we're not intending to be a governing party, and therefore, over and above our fundamental aims, which are being outlined today and specified in our literature, that is to build an economically successful, environmentally responsible and socially just, social democratic society and an independent Scotland, there is a latitude which we'll want to allow in points of view. Every political party has to decide where the line should be drawn between matters of policy and matters of conscience. Now, it may be, and I probably agree with this, that line has been far too far in one direction of late. You have to have a toleration of ideas, and particularly on matters of conscience, which are crucial to people. A political party should not dictate the individual conscience of its members or its representatives, unless it's absolutely required in terms of saving the party from a vital vote or whatever that. Now, ALBA's in the fortunate position, we're not in that position, and therefore we want ideas to come forward from a range of people and a range of aspects of society, from the trade unions, from business, from working class voices, which would be are badly needed, in my view, in parliamentary politics, and we'll be supplying some of these in our candidates list, which I think is absolutely vital, so people can look at their parliament, not just from a gender, not just from a minority point of view, not just people with disabilities. These are absolutely crucial, but a range of people across society. Because if we're going to have an independence parliament, it's going to have to be able to take forward it in a fashion that everybody in Scotland can look at that parliament and say, well, I might disagree or agree about something or this thing or the next thing, but I tell you what, I can see within that parliament voices which I can identify with as speaking to my concerns and my realities. So ALBA will try to contribute to that. Obviously, the contribution will depend on the votes of the people, but we'll certainly put forward that, and we'll certainly not try to unnecessarily restrict our members of parliament beyond the fundamental aims of achieving a prosperous, just, environmentally responsible and independent country. Beyond that, then I think ideas for a party in our position, with a party with our contribution to make, it would be an extremely good thing. Next question.
Hi, Mr. Salmond. It's Dan Sanderson here from The Telegraph. I just wanted to ask you, you've used terms like effective coalition with the SNP, but surely that would require some degree of cooperation between the party leaders. So will you be reaching out to Nicola Sturgeon to try and build bridges there? And also, you've spoken about a supermajority, obviously, in the Parliament, but there isn't a supermajority for independence in the country. I think if you got 90, if there was 90 pro-independent MSPs, that would be 70% of the seats at Holyrood, and obviously there's nothing like that in the country. So how would you respond to the accusation that this is an attempt to sort of game the electoral system, and doesn't it risk lessening support for the institution of the Scottish Parliament if you have a Parliament that is so unrepresentative of the views of the country? Thanks.
Well, Dan, can I say to you that the DeHont system has critics, of course, as any list system has critics. Most people, I think, would judge that proportional representation has been more successful in representing the views of Scotland than, for example, first past the post at Westminster does the views of the United Kingdom. Boris Johnson has his near 100 majority on a minority vote at the present moment, as you're well aware. So any political system has its critics, but generally speaking, people would argue a list system, a DeHont system, in terms of representing a country and giving fair representation, is superior to a first past the post system. But I know that the Daily Telegraph doesn't question the legitimacy of Boris Johnson or his government. Others might well do, but the Daily Telegraph is not among them. If I could put it this way, my dad was a keen golfer. And if I got into the rough when I was playing with him, he always used to tell me that I had to play the ball as it lies. I might not like being in the rough, but I had to play the ball as it lies. With the DeHont system, with the Scottish Parliament elections, we have a system that was agreed. And all parties, not just the ALBA party, have to play the ball as it lies. We have to make the best of the system. There is nothing to stop the unionist parties, and I think some people are arguing that they should form a unionist coalition on the list and try to put things forward. That is their perfect democratic entitlement to do. Similarly with the other independence list parties, they have a perfect democratic entitlement to put forward their point of view, and ultimately the people will judge who's got the best argument and who merits representation. Now, in terms of the first part of your question, let me just emphasise, I don't foresee ALBA as a party which is going into government. I don't think that will be a role in the Scottish Parliament. I see ALBA in coalition or supporting the government as part of the government itself. I don't see that the ALBA MSPs have ambitions to be government ministers. What I see ALBA as doing is providing that supermajority for independence in the Parliament, which is crucial. That's not a coalition, that is contributing to an independence majority which will reinforce the legitimacy of the Parliament speaking for the people. I see ALBA as contributing ideas for economic recovery. These are badly needed because we are going to emerge from this pandemic. When we emerge from it, and we're going to be hit by an economic maelstrom, of immense proportions. So we have to have the measures and contribution of ideas, what these measures should be. In addition, this election campaign is going to have many coming forward. ALBA will make a contribution to that. And thirdly, as I mentioned, it seems to be very, very important for the independence movement to bring forward the new independence platform. It takes account of the fact that we're 7 years on from the last referendum. The world has changed very, very substantially, and the independence platform must meet these changes as it points the way to Scotland's future. That's a contribution rather than a coalition, Dan. Next question.
Political.
Hi, yeah, this is Andrew McDonald from Political Europe. So, hi Alex. Is this party standing entirely as a vehicle for this election, or should we expect to see them standing in local elections or even by-elections as we move on? And second quick question, if I may. You still have allies in the SNP, Alex. Should we expect to see anyone else joining the party, as well as you announced Chris McElhaney today? Should we expect to see any more high-profile defections?
Well, I think, Andrew, we've announced three what I describe as high-profile recruits, and four, if you include myself, today who've played a substantial role in Scottish politics. But as I've said, we're hoisting our flag today, and this will be the first that well, just about everybody in Scotland has heard of the ALBA party, out with Laurie and his team of people who planned the idea, and the people we've discussed it with. So we're planting our flag in the wind, and we'll see who rallies to the banner. That's the important point of making the announcements. And I've tried today to give as much of a flavour of what the party's about to enable us to recruit support. But we'll be looking for people who want to join, who want to contribute, who want to be candidates. And we've got until next Wednesday to put forward that panel of candidates. I'm confident we can do it. It's a very tight timescale. And then we've got 6 weeks to take our case to the country, and I'm confident we can do that as well. But the end game of this will be judged by the people. And similarly, in terms of ALBA's development, this is an organisation which is focused on standing candidates in the list section of the Scottish Parliament. If you look at our constitution, it doesn't exclude having councillors, MPs, and the rest of it, nor should we, because that's important that ALBA can look forward in the future to that sort of representation. But the priority for ALBA is to get our list of candidates ready for these Scottish Parliament elections. That's going to be a Herculean task over the next few days, because next Wednesday is the deadline. They have to be in by next Wednesday. And you'll judge the calibre of our candidates by the people who come forward. I think that calibre will be strong. I think we'll start from a strong foundation. And then, as I say, over the next 6 weeks, we'll take our case to the country, and we'll be judged by the people. Next question.
Tom Gordon.
Hello there, Alec. We've all heard your mantra about 2 court cases, 2 judges, 1 jury, and 3 inquiries. I think it's going to wear a bit thin over the next 6 weeks, because character matters to voters. And I think voters want to know if you are a reformed character, or whether you are still the bully and the creep who is described in court. Are you still a bully and a creep, or have you reformed?
Well, Tom, I think it isn't a matter of having a mantra about court cases. There's a reason for having court judgments and going to court, and that is to establish things. There's a reason that we have juries in this country, and there's a reason for having charges and being able to answer them. And the verdict kind of matters. It matters not just to me, it matters to any decent democratic society. So it ain't a mantra that we've had 2 court cases, 2 judges, a jury, and 3 inquiries or investigations. I mean, that is what has happened. And I'm saying that I'm prepared and do accept the results of all of these investigations, court cases, juries and inquiries. And the two matters which I've identified in terms of taking forward are things that arise out of the inquiry findings, not the ones which were agreed by 5 votes to 4, but the ones which were agreed unanimously by the variety of parties on the inquiries. And I think that's a reasonable position to take. In terms of character mattering, then that's exactly what an election is about. And I'm hoping that as I put forward in a positive way the case for an independent Scotland, the case for a supermajority in the Scottish Parliament, the contribution that I think Alba will make, the list of candidates it will bring forward, the ideas that we have, the contribution we can make to the economic recovery of this country from the pandemic, and then the construction of that new independence platform by a parliament and not just a political party is a strong argument which people will look to, and the way in which we express it perhaps will contribute to the character judgments you're looking at. But look, this is an argument that's going to the people, Tom, and on the people's hands that argument will rest. Either Alba will be successful, that many people will rally to our standard, or it won't. And we'll find out over the next 6 weeks. More immediately, we'll find out over the next few days as to whether we can get that candidates list, which I'm promising, into place by next Wednesday. But the ultimate judgment is going to be one for the people to make. And on that judgment will the success or not of Alba depend. What I am certain is if Alba are successful, if we are successful in gaining a foothold, representation in the 8 regions or lists of Scotland, then that in itself will make a substantial and positive contribution to the supermajority in the Scottish Parliament, but more important, in one of the advantages of having that parliamentary legitimacy will contribute to the independence for Scotland. And whatever I have or haven't been throughout my political life, I have been devoted to that cause and will continue to be devoted to it till the day I die. Next question.
Yeah.
Neil Dickey, Financial Times. Thank you. There's clearly a risk that if the Alba party doesn't get to the threshold for an MSP from a regional list, then you could actually reduce the number of pro-independence MSPs, particularly if you take votes from the Greens. What percentage of the vote do you think you need to get to prevent that happening? And separately, you've made the point about respecting the judgment of the inquiries in courts, but I think people are interested also in your personal judgment. Do you personally feel that you have anything to apologise for in your conduct towards women while you were First Minister?
Well, take the first one first. The point I've made is everything I've said on the record about these matters stands. Everything I said in court and elsewhere stands. But the court judgments are also important because you make your case, as I did in the High Court of Judiciary, but also in the Court of Session and in front of the inquiries. You make your case and then you accept the results. You accept the things you like and you accept the things you don't like. And what I've said about that, Muir, and I think it's crucially important, is that people now accept what has happened after 2 court judgments, a jury in the High Court, 2 judges, 3 inquiries. It seems a good time to accept what's been said, to take the implications of the recommendations as I've laid out, and to move on to debate the future of Scotland. And that's exactly what I'm doing, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. As far as the arithmetic of the DeHont system is concerned, well, I did pray and aid the Salvation poll from yesterday, and as far as the SNP is concerned, given that the SNP were forecast to win no, that is 0 list seats in that poll, despite winning 67 constituencies, I think it was, across the country, but no list votes off a 39%, which would be almost 1 million votes. Well, obviously there is a substantial opportunity to increase the number of independents supporting MSPs in the Parliament to build the supermajority. That seems to me a good thing. As far as the parties which are standing on the list, then Alba will put forward our platform, the Greens will put forward their platform, other parties, the the FI and others might put forward, the ISP might put forward their platform, and people over the next 6 weeks will judge. But it's not for me to tell these other list parties that they should or shouldn't stand. They've got an absolute democratic entitlement to do so, to put themselves before the people. But I think there is a substantial opportunity, many other people think that as well, of getting more independent supporting MPs, MSPs into the Scots Parliament to build that supermajority. And I think in terms of the cause of independence, it's an opportunity that should be taken, because I think that supermajority will be crucial to strengthening Scotland's hand in the difficult negotiations to come. I think it will be absolutely crucial to have that platform of independents supporting MSPs in that Parliament. Next question.
Andy Phillip, Press and Journal. Alec, you said you're standing on the North East list, presumably at the top. The last time you stood on the North East, in the North East, you lost. What do you now have to offer constituents other than a campaign for independence?
Well, Andy, I mean, in terms of political history, I may have this wrong actually, because I sometimes do, but I think I'm right in saying I stood 10 times in the northeast of Scotland and won 9 of them, which, I mean, obviously I'd have loved to be in 10 out of 10, but, 9 out of 10 is not a bad batting average, Andy. But, well, it's at the hands of the people. You're as good as your next result, not your last result in politics. In terms of the northeast of Scotland, then there's absolutely vital things to be done. We have enormous issues with regard to our food and fish processing industries in terms of access to European markets. I know that many people who saw Brexit as a solution to their problems now see Brexit as an absolute nightmare in terms to get access to markets, but importantly, of course, to sustain the prices of their produce, which depended to a great extent on the quality of, for example, Scottish langoustine being supported by the prices it commanded in the Spanish and French marketplaces. And this is a huge tragedy that's going on at the present moment, one that many of us foresaw as a problem, but was waved away as an issue by the UK government. And then to get that guaranteed access to the marketplace in economic terms, to that single marketplace, is absolutely vital for a food and fish producing area like the northeast of Scotland. That's what sustains the prices and therefore sustains the livelihoods of many of our folk here. Second issue is the transition in terms of fossil fuels to other forms of energy. As you know, I was extremely keen. I'm extremely keen. I even had an argument with the former President of the United States about it, Andy, about the importance of us broadening our base from hydrocarbons into the renewable sector. Not just into the renewable sector, obviously, but into carbon capture. That argument needs to be rejoined because it can only be more pressing to have that diversity, to build the energy expertise which we have in abundance in the northeast of Scotland, and to make sure that it commands its position in the offshore renewable sector, but also in the renewable sector and the new technologies as a whole. Now, some important work is being done. We need to do rather more of it very quickly. And perhaps the recovery from COVID will provide the economic financial impetus in order that should be done. And the last point I would make, the announcement about John Lewis's in Aberdeen is a illustration of the great challenges that we're going to face. And the huge importance of the ideas that the Alba Party, and I am sure others, will bring forward for economic recovery from the pandemic. And these are things which we hope to contribute in the campaign so that people across the northeast of Scotland, and indeed around the country, will consider us worthy of consideration in the regional list ballot. Next question.
Hello, Alec. Roddy McLeod here, Barhead Boy blog. Can I just firstly say it's great to see you back. It's wonderful to have a positive campaign and a great campaign and someone who's been like a colossus over our politics for years. And can I say I'm also horrified at some of the media questions that you've had to suffer today. One of them, someone mentioning that character matters, but obviously not when you work for the right-wing media. But what I would like to ask you is that one of the most important things is education. I think all parties, including the SNP, all the parties, the main establishment parties, have failed to really educate the people on the vagaries of the list system, the Dahont AMS system. It's something that we need to do. How do you see, because it's so vital, of course, to Alba, to get people understanding that, how do you see that you can help promote that and educate the people in 6 weeks towards that goal of understanding how important that regional list vote is? Thank you.
I say it's really nice to put a face to Barhead Boy externally. But in terms of questions, people are entitled to ask the questions. We have an open press conference. People can ask me what they like. That's that is part of the engagement of politics, and I make no complaint whatsoever about that. That's up to folk how to frame their questions, and I'll frame the answers. In terms of your point, yeah, I'm really interested, and I think it was Dan of the Daily Telegraph was asking about, the hot system, isn't this kind of gaming the system? As if people don't game the first past the post system. The wasted vote argument, of course, was an argument in the first past the post system which was used for generations against the SNP, used against the Liberal Party, used against the Green Party, used against the Socialist Party, used against many parties who didn't have a view which was compatible with the mainstream or establishment thinking. And so first past the post was done and used in a way to crowd out different points of view. And eventually the SNP overcame that and were able to massively gain from first past the post. So the Dahont system and the nature of it and the list system of the Scots Parliament was there for a purpose. It was there to give smaller parties with something to say and something to offer an opportunity to gain a foothold in the Scots Parliament. And at various elections that has been done. We've had not just a variety of socialist parties, we've had sparkling independents like Dennis Canavan and of course the late Margaret MacDonald, who had a wonderful contribution to make. We've had the Pensioners Party, we've had the National Health Party at various points. So that has done exactly what it said on the Dahont tin. It gives people the opportunity in the regional list vote to add some flavour, colour, some grit in the oyster of the Scots Parliament. Therefore, the Alba Party, in standing for the list, isn't taking advantage of the system. It is playing the ball as it lies. It is showing that the list system gives that opportunity for emerging ideas to gain a foothold. Now, I think there are emerging ideas which are crucial to Scotland's future at the present moment, because there is nothing more important than recovery from the pandemic and some of the contributions we'll make to that. There's nothing more important than constructing the new platform for Scottish independence and the ideas we can bring forward to that. And there's absolutely nothing more important than having a supermajority of MSPs in that Scottish Parliament to provide the comfort and the support for the independence negotiations, to cast that argument as Boris Johnson against the Parliament and against the people of Scotland, not as an inter-party to battle. And thanks for the question, Barhead Boy.
Foster from Global Radio here. Now, I understand this multi-party position that you're talking about, that having more than one party going for a Section 30 order will be perhaps more plausible than the current situation where it's just the SNP. But is there any precedent that you can think of a party this close to an election that is launched finding success at the polls, barring, of course, Nigel Farage's Brexit party? And if that's the case, are you seeing Nigel Farage and his Brexit party as your role model here?
But no, I'm not. No more than I'm seeing President Macron as my role model, who'd be another example of a party which emerged very close to elections. Look, these things are not easy. I mean, the reason that you were looking just for one example, and I've given you another, I think we both might struggle if we would get to, well, let's put it this way, we both might struggle if we had to go beyond counting the fingers of one hand. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen, it can happen, and it happens when the conditions are right, if people have an argument to put forward. But I'm not underrating the difficulties attached to this. I mean, this is a substantial task to get a list of candidates in by next Wednesday who are of the complexion, the calibre and the breadth that Alba is looking for, and then to take that case to the country over 6 weeks. That is a huge task, and of course to get the voter appreciation and acknowledgement of your existence, of course, is the first hurdle to get over. So of course it is a substantial task, but the opportunity is there. The position is there in the list to put forward a coherent argument and to add to the independence firmament in the Scots Parliament. So I think it's a substantial task, but it's something that needs doing, that should be done. Therefore, I've accepted Laurie Flynn's invitation to take Alba through this election.
I'll call you back, Laura. Hello? Hello?
Technology, Peter. They're giving you a second go before people have had a first go. So,
Oh, sorry, yes. I'm very, very grateful for that. Thank you very much, Mr. Salmond. Sorry. In response to here, has been a statement released by the SNP, and I'm grateful for you taking the second question. But they're saying, the SNP saying in response to your launch, that this is perhaps the most predictable development in Scottish politics. They said that at a time of crisis, the interest of the country must come first and should not be obscured by the self-interest of someone who shows no sign whatsoever of reflecting on serious concerns about his own conduct, concerns which, to put it mildly, raise real questions about the appropriateness of a return to public office. This is a party that you're saying that you want to help. It doesn't sound like they want your help at all, Mr. Salmond. And I would also say that there have been questions raised by other parties today about whether women can feel safe working with you. And I know that you've said that's been dealt with already. I just wonder if in response to those concerns, are you taking any extra steps to safeguard women who will be working with you?
See from the Alba Party's list of candidates, some substantial women candidates will be coming forward, and that I think speaks for itself, Peter. As far as the SNP, well, according to my pledge of the Alba will be a positive campaign and we shall not rise to any negative bait. I would just comment that if this was the most predictable development in Scottish politics, then as far as I know, very few, if any, people have actually predicted it. So it's somewhat easy to say something is predictable after the event. The challenge of a prediction is to make that forecast before the event. But let me repeat the Alba pledge that we'll go forward and we'll campaign in an entirely positive fashion on a platform that will assist independence for Scotland, because we believe a contingent of Alba Party MPs in the Scottish Parliament will build a supermajority for independence, which will be an essential advantage in Scotland's position in negotiations with the Westminster government. It will provide perhaps the crucial ingredient which will tilt things in Scotland's favour, and Alba will go forward both in the nature of our campaign and the contribution we're trying to make. And at the end of the day, in 6 weeks' time, it will be the people who judge the outcome. Question in, so make it a good one. Thanks, Peter.
Mr. Salmond, over the it is entirely possible that at the end of this, you and your party, if you're elected as you all hope, will hold a balance of power in the Scottish Parliament, you may be put in a position, as we've seen over the last few weeks, where you may have to express confidence in the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, certainly potentially vote for her to continue in her post after that election. Given everything that you have said and the opprobrium on which you've poured on many of your former colleagues, many of whom you alleged have effectively engaged in a conspiracy against you, how can you really do that with any credibility?
Well, first things first, the election of First Minister in the Scots Parliament, I mean, I was elected, if I remember, as First Minister with 49 votes out of 129 in the Scots Parliament. The contribution we want to make in the Scots Parliament is to the independence platform to make sure there's that supermajority of SNP MPs, but supporting independence, so across the range of parties. We're a party which is unambiguously saying to people, vote for your independence candidate, your SNP candidate, in your constituency ballot. So we're already giving the SNP that endorsement and support. And we're saying vote for Alba on your regional list ballot to get that supermajority which will provide an impetus for independence. I think, as I said on Wednesday, that once the inquiries were over, and as I've said at this conference today, if we encompass that within the two court judgments, the jury's verdict, the two judges, and the 3 inquiries and investigations, then you've got kind of 2 choices. You can either say, I didn't agree with that, I don't like it, I don't think that should have happened, or you say, look, we'll accept the verdict. I'm for accepting the verdict. The 2 continuing actions which I identified on Wednesday arise directly out of recommendations of the inquiry, unanimous recommendations of the inquiry, and therefore that is part of accepting the recommendations. I haven't raised questions over the issues where I thought the inquiry were wrong or the Hamilton report was wrong, because at the end of the day, if you engage in a process, you've got to accept the outcome. I engaged in these inquiries, and therefore I accept the outcome, just as people should accept the result of court judgments and jury verdicts. Really important that people do that, in my opinion. But I'm prepared to do it, I'm going to do it, and that's why Alba will be an entirely positive force in Scottish politics, in Scottish society, and in the campaign for Scottish independence. I want to thank everyone for their questions today, every single one of you, and let me repeat, the 6 weeks we've got to establish Alba's significance in Scottish politics, to gain representation from a standing start. I think we can do it. I'm not making no claim it's going to be easy. Our objective is to gain a foothold in each of the list areas of Scotland and gain support for people who will appreciate we're going to try to make a positive contribution to Scotland's recovery from the pandemic in economic terms. We're going to contribute to the platform for an independent country, which is essential if we're going to face the realities of where we are now as opposed to where we were in 2014. And thirdly, and crucially, and devastatingly obviously, take the opportunity to build that supermajority of independent supporting MSPs in the Scots Parliament. I think Alba can do it, we can make a contribution to do it, but myself and every other Alba candidate will be putting ourselves in the hands of the people. The one certainty you can have is everything we do, say in this campaign will be entirely positive and about the future of Scotland. It'll be an entirely constructive contribution to a debate I enormously look forward to. And with that, thank you one and all, to the television, to the mainstream media, to the bloggers, to our international questioner from Spain, and to everybody else who's been tuning in. It won't be the last you hear from Alba, but I hope you quite enjoyed what you've heard so far. Thanks again, and good afternoon.